It's the Drinking with Drew Show.
The only podcast in Florida hosted by the private investigator of the stars, Drew.
So I'll just come.
Can you get this fucking stranger off my damn lawn?
I like it.
We're sampling drinks from across the world, but mainly from Riverview, Florida. We're giving you the spin on all the news you need to know about. Local, national, maybe even from your bedroom. Yep, that includes sex and whatever else we care to talk about.
I actually have a butthole in my face.
Better than Joe Rogan, but not as good as Jerry Springer. You'll laugh.
Like I was on a safari and I got eaten by a lion. Like, fuck yeah. Like, you get to heaven, you got, like, street cred.
You'll cry.
I miss you, yeah. We still have here, right?
You'll want to pry your earballs off. Tune in. Tune out. Don't believe a word we say.
That's so freaking cool, man.
DrinkingWithDrew.com with guest Lusty Laura, the neighbor Joe, Darby. Special appearances by J. Fred and Casey. And now, here's Drew.
Y'all better listen up now.
It's that time, everybody.
What time is it?
It's the Drinking with Drew show.
Knock, 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 knock.
And tonight, we have the lusty Laura and the Hizzle. Hello. We have neighbor Joe. And special guest, the metal mastermind of the world, Jason Stallworth.
What's up, guys?
What's up, Jason?
You want to plug your YouTube channel?
We'll get there, Joe.
We'll get there, yeah.
Jeez, it's the first 30 seconds of the show.
He just gets it all out of the way. He's done in 5.
Exactly, so you don't forget.
So it looks like Casey shaved her head and gained some weight from last
She
week.
gained a few pounds.
Yeah. So, okay. We'll have to deal with that. It's okay. All right. So me and Jason got into this conversation while we were in the pool, 3 sheets to the wind.
Ooh, yes.
And so...
Put your hats on for this one.
By hats, he means the aluminum foil kind.
I don't know. I'm not going to go into aluminum foil because to me, this is science. It's literally science. And it can be proven if you just study it, focus on it, whatever. So me and Jason, and I've had this theory in my head, not a theory, but I've had this...
philosophy.
Is it a philosophy, Joe?
I don't know.
I've studied this
It's an ability.
situation. Maybe it's an ability. I think everybody can do it, though. But so me and Jason were talking. We realized that we both had this experience and history with.
Did she touch you the wrong way?
Well, seeing the what Jason referred to as red dots, where I just refer to them as dots, or even just being able to manipulate and study what you see when you close your eyes. And it's almost like an extreme pixelation, okay? And I prefer that you try this when it's dark outside. You could technically, anytime you close your eyes, you can kind of get an idea what we're talking about. But it's a heavy pixelation that you see when you close your eyes. It's not just black. It's not just, complete darkness. You see what you see when you close your eyes. So when Jason brought it up, and I was like, man, I've been talking about that and studying it 20 some odd years. And I had a friend of mine that I was talking to them about it and having them understand it. And the best time to study it is at night before you're going to sleep. And when your mind is relaxed, when your eyes are relaxed, and the ability to focus your eyes at different focal lengths to see what you want to see. But Jason, what first got you into looking at that and realizing it's an actual thing?
I've seen them throughout my life, different times in my life. Close my eyes, I'm like, there's some weird dots there. I just figured, and didn't really think much of it, but I kind of knew in the back of my mind there was something to that. I started, and not to get too deep here, but I started doing some light meditation, like 10, 15 minute meditation, and towards the beginning of this year. And now it's becoming much more than just the red dots. I can see there's something else behind that, and I'll see that, and it's like, okay, there you guys are, And then I get many like affirmations and just thoughts that come through that. Of course, when you're meditating, you're supposed to block everything out, but
Right.
I think some things you do accept coming in. It's kind of the busyness of life that you're blocking out. So yeah, I'm like, okay, well this is, and I still can't explain it. And I guess part of me loves the mystery behind that.
Now, have you gotten to the point to where you're able to differentiate and separate objects and see scenes or make people out or make them out to be anything, or are you just like trying to figure out more about what they're doing?
It's more, and so the dots, I mean, they're just there. Like I'm looking at them right now. You guys are gonna think I'm nuts. We talked about nuts earlier, but I can see them.
Anytime anybody that closes their eyes, you can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think anybody can see that. I would think anyway. I've never talked about this with anyone. I've never met anyone, but it was just. But what I can see now, I can see figures at times. I can see figures. I can't make out who. Sometimes I don't even know if it's a person. Sometimes I think it's like an entity or something, right?
Some of the confusion, like we can look at the clouds and be like, "Oh, that's a turtle,"
right?
Or "Oh, that's a Dracula" or something.
Pretty sure we saw a dragon on Sunday in the clouds.
Dragons are so cool.
Yes, we did actually. So you can see shapes and things and make certain things out of various, objects that you're looking at. Some people can look at, like I can look at a floor tile and be like, "Oh, there's a face. There's a face."
Like a Rorschach test.
Yeah. So
Like Magic Eye.
pretty much. Yeah.
Can you do those Magic Eye?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see.
I never saw anything out of those Magic. My dad would pick it up and be like, "Oh, sailboat. Oh, fish.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really?
truck."
You never saw anything?
I could never see shit.
So
Not a thing.
You got to cross your eyes right.
It don't work.
there, and when you say meditation, I was studying this before I even really knew what meditation was, or I didn't really
Masturbation.
think about it as like a thing, but it is definitely meditation. So what I would do is when I'm going to sleep, I would basically just kind of clear my eyes, and I would, it's kind of like New York traffic. Okay.
Yes.
Or LA traffic, to where sometimes it's so busy and these things are moving around and they're just, you can't control them. And that's part of the issue, is trying to control them to where you are able to manipulate them. Not that you're going to tell them what to do per se. I think you can do that, but I think it's more to be able to slow them down and to have them become the item that they are. It's kind of like, okay, you want to take that TV pixelation and slow it down and try to decode what is going on there, because that's kind of the goal, I think. And I've noticed that when I have my eyes closed, if I focus, like I'm looking at a tree that's 200 feet away, even though my eyes are closed, I'm not focusing on my hand, right here. I'm focusing way out, like it was space, and I'm looking in. That's kind of how I determined that this is actual, like a space, that I'm looking into space, and I'm trying to look at a star, that is.
Now, are you still awake at this time, or are
Absolutely,
you still
yeah,
asleep?
Absolutely.
Do you think, like, when people say, "Oh, they were daydreaming," like, and they snap out of it, do you think that it's maybe something similar to that?
Like in Scrubs?
And to get into that point, this was, I think, what maybe how we started the conversation. I'm not sure, but these pixelations are what form the images in your dreams. And I have proven that to myself, and nobody is going to tell me otherwise, because when you start being able to look at these things and they start developing motion, they will turn into your dreams. And when you're dead fucking asleep and you have the REM sleep going, these pixelized images, just like a TV screen, come together and they start forming the actions that you see when you're sleeping. And I've done it before to where I'm sleeping, but I'm not sleeping. And to kind of answer Joe's question, it's both. But when you start to control them and try to manipulate them and understand them, you're awake. But you're in that meditation zone that you're describing, that I never really called meditation. I was just calling it like studying and kind of relaxing my brain and my eyes to where I'm trying to figure it out.
Which is pretty much what meditation is.
Yeah. But I guess when you're falling asleep and then you suddenly realize, okay, I'm in that halfway point, and that's the key point that I always try to land in, where I'm just about to sleep, but I'm also dreaming, to where I can be like conscious in my own mind to be like, okay, they're moving now to the point to where I'm able to visualize whatever they decide to show me, whatever they decide to put in my head, in my front vision, whatever that TV decides to turn on, I'm going to watch it. And then if you slowly wake yourself up, you will see them slow down and start becoming disorganized to the point where you're like, okay, now I'm awake, but these things are moving around, they're swirling, and they're just doing this crazy shit that's like they're breaking apart the organized vision that they were giving you during the dream, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. It's when we go from our alpha or beta state to alpha state, and I don't remember who it was. I want to say Einstein, it could have been someone else, but would sleep on the couch with a ball, like a steel ball in his hand, and there was a plate on the floor, and he knew as he was falling asleep, he was reaching that alpha state because your brain is kind of shutting down, right? So, or it's not overthinking. So when the ball hit the plate, of course, that would wake him up. I'm like, I'm in my alpha state. I need to go write down what's in my head right now.
Right.
So meditation to me is getting into the alpha state, but more so is it's mental house cleaning. It's like you said, we've got so many things going on. You and I are creators. Like you're doing the arts here. We're doing the arts right now. And I think creators, musicians, and artists, and that sort of thing, filmmaking, whatever you do in the arts, I think that maybe our brain works a little bit differently. We're a little bit more emotional, I think, in some ways. So I think we have a lot of like constant activity going on up there. And I know me, I can overthink situations. I can create work when there doesn't need to be work, for example.
Right.
So I'm learning to get better at that. But I believe we're getting into that alpha state to where we're mentally cleaning everything out up there and just being in that present moment, and I think with that, when you awaken from that is when a lot of really cool things can happen. Dude, I've had two major brand deals this year, with one with Black Star and one with Electro Voice, and that happened shortly after I started meditating. And I'm not saying meditation that's the magic key to life. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm a big fan of to each their own. I know this is working the way I need it to work for me. I would think that it might work for someone else too, especially if you're kind of struggling in some areas, like, I want to get to that next level, whatever that level may be. So yeah, it's very interesting though. It's a fun journey.
Well, I want us to keep like talking about this. And if you get to that point to where you get to that transition to where you can visually recognize the unorganized pixelation or dots turn into a vision, to where you're like that subconscious, but you're dreaming, but you're aware that you're dreaming, and they form, that's that key point. That, I wish I could tell you how to get there, but I can just, the way I did it was just trying to focus my eyes as far as I can out, and they just.
You think this is the aliens trying to communicate with you telepathically, and we're just not there yet?
Joe, at this point with the aliens,
accept those messages.
I wish they would just zap me up and take me away. I mean, that'd be cool. So, hey, let's get the fuck out of here.
Now imagine this is them sober talking about this. Imagine this on Sunday when they're both drunk. And
oh man, it was.
This went on for about 2 hours.
They were off in the corner of the pool by themselves, whispering sweet nothings about docs.
I think if the neighbors were listening to that fucking conversation, Jason, you might,
we might,
get some injunctions in the mail.
Right.
Oh, man.
Some shit,
Could you please move these people out of our neighborhood?
Right.
We were normal before he arrived.
They're going to write the HOA and be like, get them the fuck out.
I wish we could have
They're
recorded the conversation.
depreciating my property value.
Oh, man, yeah.
I love this stuff, though, dude, and I do recall saying this part. I love everything about it, because some of it, I love the science aspect of it, too, but I think that there will always be mysteries of the world that we don't quite understand, and I think that sometimes as we figure them out for ourselves, maybe it's different for someone else,
Yeah.
And I think life comes in phases. You think about, like, if you're going to record an album, let's say all four of us are going to record an album. Well, there's
lead vocals.
Yeah, there we go. See,
I get the tambourine.
I like it. I like where we're going with this.
That's about the extent of my musical abilities.
But there'd be phases, right? We would have a writing phase, then we'd have a recording phase, then we'd have a release phase and a marketing phase. And I think in life we experience different phases. So the red dots and the meditation and all that good stuff, what it's doing for me right now is really just changing my mentality and the way I look at life and the way I look at things. I don't get upset at traffic anymore, like at all. I don't get upset at anything.
Spot in life.
Well, because and I'm conscious of this. It doesn't mean I'm perfect. I'm far from perfect. It doesn't mean I don't get upset at times. It doesn't mean I don't overthink at times. But I'm much better at certain things now, because there are so many things that I'm focused on now that this is my goal. And if this is my goal, I can't really get upset about the little stuff. And I'll tell you one more thing real quick is I've experienced like a buttload I love the word buttload for some reason, but
Butthole.
a buttload of gratitude. I wake up every morning with gratitude. First of all, wife is in bed, as I'm waking up to go to the gym, and just really, like, I think, okay, well, I've got everything I could possibly want and more, everything I could ever dream of in this life. There's nothing that could fuck up my day at that point. Nothing. So I walk out of the door with that mentality, and I think that, magical things happen after that.
Yeah, I agree. Except when you lose your key in the pool.
Well, yeah, that's not very magical, right?
But so here's a
But you still bought a lotto ticket for today, right?
no, I have not.
1.5 billion. You can buy a ticket?
Not yet. Not
Well,
yet.
if I win, fuck you all.
Yeah, we're gonna rush out and buy one.
He doesn't mean that, by the way. I know he doesn't.
No, so I will admit that when I was younger, I'll say even beyond experiment, I probably used LSD and mushrooms too much. But with that being said, I will guarantee you that those items significantly improve the pixelation and dot movement. And I don't know what it is about I know you're.
No, I was just gonna say I thought it was your experience with death that helped to open the window to your dots.
I don't know. I mean, I who knows?
Yeah, we talked about that.
We did talk about that. It could be, but I can tell you that when you use even people who hallucinate, and I would love to talk to a doctor about this that has studied like hallucinations and what causes them and whatnot. But I can guarantee you that the pixelation and the dots come to life to the point to where you can see them even with your eyes wide open while I'm looking at you. They're forming shit, and they are so vividly that you think they're right in front of you. And that's the point of hallucinations that LSD and mushrooms can cause, to where it's like, okay, that's the extreme of causing the movement of those dots and the pixelations to form something, because you're really living it like you were, like if you were to go to sleep and you're dreaming, you're like, oh my God, that dream was so real. That pixelation is forming in your head, your eyesight, and wherever it's stored. And that's kind of the weird thing. Like, where is it stored? Is it in my eyelids? Is it in my eyeballs? Like, where are those little dots being stored at? Are they in the retina of my eyeball? Things like that. I don't know. But there are items, and mushrooms are natural, and now they're even being used in pharmaceuticals and being approved for various, like ketamine even is being approved for certain symptoms, pharmaceutically approved, blah, blah, blah. But there's a danger in that. I'm not going to say go out and fucking take, a hit of acid to learn how to do this, or go out and eat mushrooms to learn how to do this.
Start with ayahuasca.
Not at all what I'm saying, but there's an ingredient within those substances that allow these pixelations and dots to really come to life.
So
and
if you get these because of the substance enhancements that you're talking about, that's one thing. But if you get them on your own, is that schizophrenia?
No,
right. That's what I was going to say. Like, is that what they hallucinate when they're going crazy and they're having a mental break?
I think it's
visions and not voices.
I think it's your brain's ability to naturally control them. Because remember,
and
we
do not use.
We use a very little percentage of our brain power, and we don't know exactly what our brain can do as a species. But I'm just a firm believer that anybody can manipulate them if they study it, if they know how to do it, when to do it, how to calm your mind and focus your eyes. I think anybody can do it. But I also believe that there are performance enhancing drugs that allow it to happen more easily. I haven't done those specific things in quite a while. But, I definitely think that there's something about those chemicals that I wish we could kind of investigate to see why they cause them to be an effective manipulator on that.
Well, I know there are medically guided trips you can take. If you listen to the author and entrepreneur Tim Ferriss, he's actually a fan of this sort of thing. And, having a doctor guide you through that, and it's opened up a lot of people's minds to do some other things. Like, okay, now I've got this idea, and they go after it at that point. So, right. Yeah, I think there's something to. Now, my personal belief, and I could be wrong. That's always a disclaimer. I could be very wrong. But my personal belief is we can get there without any help. I think we have the power. I do too. We have that higher intelligence that we have access to if we're willing to dig deep enough and focus. And I think this is where the power of things like meditation comes in, of just clearing your head. I try to do this at least every other day. I don't always get to it. Now I'll sit there for like an hour and do nothing. I'll sit there for what I think is like 8 or 9 minutes, but it'll end up being like 15 or 16, and that time gets longer and longer. It used to be 10, and now I'm just kind of stopping at one point, and that time is now longer. So I guess I'm getting better at it. I don't know, but I think we can tap into higher intelligence. And I have the belief in the laws of the universe. If you have pure intent going into something, and you have the gratitude, and you don't have any ill intent or ill intentions, then good things are going to come out of that. I think you're going to have this ability to push forward and do great things with your life and impact other people, right? So I think that's kind of the laws of the universe there. And I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong.
I agree. Yeah. So I know that we talked a lot about different theories with it, and I don't know, and to kind of jump on that. And this is maybe the tinfoil hat part. If you want to talk about tinfoil hat parts, is the shadow people. Okay, and we talked about shadow people. We talked about shadow people, and this is something that I've heard on a lot of talk radio shows involving like supernatural and yada yada. So the shadow people theory is that you can basically remote view is what it's called, remote viewing. Technically, shadow people and remote viewing are two different things, but in a way, it's almost the same. So. Remote viewing is when we get in that state where the pixels are moving and they're making a scene. There are some beliefs that the scene that you're seeing is somewhere else, either maybe within our world, maybe on a separate plane, but somewhere. If you see a scene, and I've seen scenes that are so realistic where I can point out and be like, these are people walking to a table. These are people setting a table. This person's, climbing a ladder. Like, you can just see for no reason. And that's what's weird about it. The visions that you're seeing are just so random and just so like, why am I seeing this? Like, and that's why it just doesn't make sense. So like, that's why people are, they assume that, well, you're just seeing some action from another part of the world. And I'm not knocking that theory. I am throwing the theory out there. I'm not approving or disapproving. I'm just saying it's a theory. And then the shadow people is more of you ever like see something just out of the corner of your eye and it takes off and you look and you're like,
yes, yeah.
What the fuck was that?
Plenty of times.
And you just see something that's kind of dark and then it kind of vanishes and you're like, okay. So that is what people term as like shadow people. Now, I don't know exactly if it relates to the pixelation and the dots, but if you have that, that same vision, it could be like you're visualizing that while your eyes are completely open and you're seeing that move real quick, and that the pixelation is what's causing the movement. But I don't know. Like, I don't think any theorist or doctor or psychologist or psychiatrist has like really come up with any foundation on why or who, what, and where. But those are just things that I have related that I experience, on a regular basis, where I'm like, that was weird. And I grew up, and just a little backstory, people believe in haunted houses, some people don't, spirit world, whatever. I'm a definite believer in spirit world. I grew up in a house that I saw so much shit growing up that, my dad passed away in my house, but even before that, as a kid, like 3 years old, I remember seeing shit all the way up until my teens. I mean, I could talk for 3 hours or longer about experiences that I've had in my house. So there's nobody that could sit here and tell me that these things don't happen. It's just, why do they happen and what are you seeing? And I would probably be put in a loony bin 30 years ago or 40 years ago if I was talking to somebody, who had the ability to just hear my mindset on what I was experiencing, because some of the shit that I was seeing, I was just like, that definitely can't be real. Like, what the fuck was that? But it happened, and it's just trying to make sense of it. And that's kind of the point to where I'm like, now I'm 49 years old, trying to kind of make sense of, and I've been trying to make sense of it for a long time, but I think the older you get, the more mature you try to make sense of what you're experiencing, maybe.
Sure. I think we come up as a society with all these clinical terms, and I'm not knocking that. I'm not knocking science. I'm not knocking the study of and all this. And I think that it's wise to do that, to try to figure out what things are. But again, I think there's just some things that you can't come up with the clinical answer for. We're always trying to find the answer that satisfies that question, that curiosity. And even though that answer, we want it to be true, it may not be true. Because what you were seeing, I'm sure there are clinical answers for that, right? well, you're
seeing,
this, you're that.
hearing, feeling.
Right.
Like, I'm not just saying I saw shit. I felt shit. I heard shit, combination of that and just stuff you can't explain. Like literally just, I've tried to tell people about some of my experiences, but then I just stopped over the years. Like when I was younger, even in my early teens, I would, I had a friend growing up that I would Mark that lived down the road from me. I'd tell him stuff that I saw and be like, he would just blow it off because he was just a kid that some people experience it and some don't. And that's the confusing part.
Not everyone does.
He had zero experiences, so he didn't listen to anything I said.
Yeah. And I think that's why we had such a lengthy conversation on Sunday, because two people that have been through some similar experiences,
right?
With some beers coupled in with that, it makes sense. But no, I've seen things throughout my life that I can't explain. I can explain it to myself. I can explain it to you. I think most people wouldn't understand, or they would pawn it off on, well, you're experiencing this or that, because if they say that, well, that makes sense to them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's not really the case, though. So I do, in short, I believe there are things that go bump in the night.
For sure. You can only talk about it so much, because then people just people who believe in it, they'll support you and they'll give you your own experiences. But it also does wake up the crazies. And there are people out there who are just, I get calls, as a private investigator where, 90-year-old ladies are wanting me to crawl through their attic, to find the aliens that are spying on her.
Oh, dude.
And I'm just like, I understand where she's coming from, because she so hardly wants somebody to believe it and believe her.
Right.
But I can't rightfully charge this lady, to go crawling through her attic to look for aliens. To me, it's just, I'm not going to do that. So it's like, okay. Or you just talk to people who, they hear what you're saying and they try to compare it to a story that just, I don't know. To me, I guess, to me, I can tell when it's that they've reached that threshold of supernatural experiences and I'm batshit crazy experience, that they're just not on their meds.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
There's a big difference. There's not people who can tell the difference in that. And I think that's kind of, I don't know, maybe one supernatural experienced person talking to another, we can identify that. Whereas somebody from, HR might just think I'm a crazy motherfucker anyways, just because I'm having this conversation. Like, no, you're crazy too, bitch. Get the fuck out.
And they're going to look at us, Drew, and they're going to see the heavy metal shirts, the deicide poster, the morbid angel.
Like, you're possessed. That's why.
Yeah, you listen to that there devil music.
When you have Satan hanging around with you, that's what happens to you.
Oh, man. No, this is, I love this stuff just because of the experience I've had. And, it's hard to talk to some people about it because, like you said, most people don't understand. I love to talk about it. I'll talk about it anyway sometimes, but not everyone's going to understand that. Most people won't, and even people that do, they may be afraid to talk about it because they're afraid of the judgment, and people just kind of discount them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, some people are just raised in a very religious and a strict conservative household.
And that was me. Yeah.
You're not allowed to believe that.
Yeah.
Whatever you're experiencing, there's a reason for it, but it's not what you think, because this is the way of life and this is the way it goes. But, you get to the point to where you experience things that, like, I was raised in a religious household, but also, when my dad passed away, I dreamt about him dying before he died, and as a kid that's, 5 years old, dreaming about your dad passing away and then it happening a week later, and then when you're 8 years old, you dream about a bad car accident where you died, and I dreamt it and I experienced it, a week later. So just weird telepathic kind of connections like that, to where now my mom passed away. I've seen my mom come to me in my dreams, which is weird because and I didn't even tell you about this, Laura, but I have not seen my dad in a dream ever. And so weird. I had a dream that my mom was visible, and this is the first time I can remember. She said, "Your dad is here too," and I heard his voice in the background saying, "Hey Andy, how you doing?" But he wasn't there visually, but his voice was. And it's the first time I've heard my dad's voice in a dream, or since I could remember. But it just sparked a remember, kind of like once you hear it, you're not going to forget it, even if you hadn't heard it, since you were 5 years old. It was just
40 years ago.
Yeah, it was just so weird because it was like it sat with me. It was like, It's just I open my mind to it. Maybe that's part of it, is you open your mind to it, and that's why it's allowed to happen to you. And people that shut it out immediately, they don't experience it because of whatever reason. It's been shut out. They're mentally shutting it out, so they're just not seeing the clues. It's like that hot girl at the bar where the 15 guys are hitting on her, but she's clueless to it. I don't know. It's like she's just not accepting it. She's just shutting it out because she's focused on, her work presentation in the morning, and she's just not paying attention to the, Googling eyeballs. I don't know.
It could also be a gift. And different people have different gifts. We were talking about this on one of my videos, one of my lives, when someone was debating whether people had natural talents. They're like, no, there's no such thing as natural talent. You've got to work your butt off. I'm like, you do. But if someone's gifted with a natural talent, like I could never play basketball and compete with the dudes that are 6'8". I'm never going to be that, right?
Right.
I know there are exceptions, but very few. I kind of naturally picked up guitar, whereas I sucked at most everything else I tried in my life. So I found the thing that I sort of had a natural knack for. I still had to work hard for it, right, to get to whatever level I'm at now. But I think these things could be gifts as well. Dude, and at some point we may have a responsibility to put those to use. And maybe this conversation is like, the gateway to that.
Right. When me and you were talking about it in the pool, obviously we were a little drunk and just shooting the shit, but trying to explain it in a podcast format to people to they can understand it. And like you were calling it red dots, I'm calling it pixelation. We have kind of a different way, but when it's kind of like, the ancient, people that lived in the caves, seeing stuff and writing it on the wall because they didn't know how to describe it. They're writing these things on the wall, how they felt what they were seeing. So when
Hieroglyphs,
thank you very much. They were just kind of giving their own ideas on what they felt they were seeing. So when you said red dots, it was interesting because I was like, that's how you described it in your own head and in your own mind, and that's what you're used to calling them. But it made sense to me. I'm like, I knew exactly what you were talking about.
We're putting Joe to sleep over here.
That's fine. Joe, when you sleep, can you see the dots? That's what I want you to see. Focus on the pixelation.
He sees something. Yeah, he's out. He's like, would you two just shut up?
I think that's the second person that's fallen asleep in the studio.
That was great.
Bubs was the first.
for different reasons.
For different reasons, yes. But yeah, we'll talk about it more. I
have a question.
I come here every week because I want to talk about boobs, and this is what I get.
He's getting red dots instead of boobs.
Speaking of boobs, Joe was topless in your pool and scaring the birds away.
I saw that, yeah.
They were dipping down and taking his chest hair and making nest out of it in your trees.
True.
Oh, cool.
All right,
Here's my question. I couldn't interject when it was said because you guys were kind of on a roll. But you went from the pixelations, the dots, and then you went into shadow people. Mm-hmm. But to me, your definition or your description of what a shadow person is something that I saw when I was a child, but it was always said, and I always thought of it as more so like a spirit. So are you saying that?
I don't know. I'm just...
Okay, because I didn't know if you were saying like the pixels were the shadow
just saying
people,
it could be.
or if you like were jumping topics and you were just saying that like if you have one ability, you probably are more apt to have another one. Because I saw like what I took in, like of course when I was a child I didn't know what it was, but I always in my heart felt like it was like my grandfather that passed before I was alive or before I was born, because he built the house that I was raised in for my mom. So that's what I always thought of it as, but I never saw him in a dream. I always just saw him as a shadow that was in the house every once in a while. So I just wasn't sure what you were. So they're two different things or what?
Yeah, I was just putting the possibility out that it could, the movement that you're seeing could be the pixelations making a movement. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm more on the fence of it's a spirit or something on a second plane that might, I don't know.
Maybe it was just her neighbor hiding in her closet.
Could be, Joe.
Could be, Joe. What I love about this, though, is you and I, we're on the same page. It's like, we're not saying we have all the answers.
No, for sure. No.
I'm very reluctant to listen to someone, even if they're degreed an expert or whatever, that claims they have all the answers. Because if you have all the answers, you haven't dug deep enough.
Right.
and we're really open. Like this could be what people maybe even consider angels or the guardians watching over us.
Right.
I can tell you a lot of things that should have happened to me in my life that didn't, and I don't have an explanation for that kept me safe, just as much as some of the other supernatural events I've experienced and things I've seen and heard, that I did experience and wasn't quite sure what those were for. Many of them I still don't know. But I think as we get older, I'm starting to gain a little bit deeper understanding, and I think more will be revealed to us as we're more open to receive it.
Right. And I definitely don't claim to have answers or all the answers, but what pisses me off is when I try to, if I say I saw this or I can do this, because I know 100% that I can do it if somebody just tells me I'm full of shit.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just shutting you out because you just don't have an open mind enough to listen to somebody else's viewpoint, or you don't have an open mind enough to accept something other than what you believe. Like I'm telling you an experience I literally experienced, right, and you're telling me it didn't happen.
Now, this is a personal thing for yourself, but what do you think about like psychics that claim to be able to see other people's like deep stuff?
Well, the problem with that, Joe, is there's a lot of hacks out there. There's a lot of scam artists in that industry. I'm not saying that there aren't people that can do it.
Yeah, because you're not trying to take advantage of someone else and get money from them. You're just saying, This is what I do it myself.
Joe doesn't even know that I was red on Friday.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Her, Casey, and Rossi were out at a bar, and some dude was sitting there.
That's not the beginning of a joke.
Yeah, it should be. But they got read by some dude at the bar, and
we were having a girls' night, and we went to this bar that was near Casey's house. It was kind of like this locals bar, and
it's called Tom's Tavern.
Well, I wasn't trying to say where.
We can say it. I don't give a shit.
Anywho,
it's a fact.
Uncle Tom's Tavern.
We went inside to go cash out, and Casey's up at the bar cashing out, and I'm standing behind her, and this guy was in a bar stool, and he turns around and he gets up thinking that he's going to give us his seat, but I'm like, oh no, we're fine, we're cashing out, so we don't need the seats, thank you though. And so he just kind of sits there and he stares at me for a second, and I'm like, why are you staring at me? I wasn't being rude, he wasn't trying to be rude, and he's just like, you're just an overthinker, and he just like literally starts saying all these things, and I'm like, is this shit like written somewhere? Was he listening in on our conversations? But we were sitting outside. There was nobody around us. Not that the conversation was really on me that night because we were, talking about other things. But he then turns to Casey and starts like reading her. And everything that he was saying were things that me and Rossi were saying to her earlier on in the night when we were having conversations. And my jaw is just like on the floor, just in awe of this guy.
So we're tip him afterwards?
No, he was just saying that he's like, I am very insightful. I can read people. I did ask him if he could see the color of my aura, and he said he doesn't do that. He can't see the colors of people's aura because I wanted to know what my color was. But he wouldn't give us his name. I was a little upset. But we do have his email address.
Does
Casey
he really
apparently.
exist?
Right? He could just have been something that popped into our lives that we needed in that moment. And it was the cherry on top of the ice cream cake that was girls' night, and it was a good night. Yeah,
that's when I had my first hamburger.
Yeah, right. For the week.
Yeah, they were bouncing around to different areas of the bay, and I'm like,
yeah, Rossi.
I'm having a date night of my own. I took myself out, and I'm having a fucking cheeseburger.
Yeah,
nice, dude.
Rossi was hell bent on having Laotian. Is that how you say it, Joe?
Laotian
food.
Laotian food.
Ugh. God, and this one over here is freaking sending me bacon-wrapped shrimp and blueberry beer and bacon cheeseburgers and waffle fries and Ben & Jerry's ice cream cones. And I'm like, you fucker. I was so mad because I'm like, give me a fucking egg roll and soup, please, because nothing else is good.
An octopus.
And I didn't have a say in it because I wasn't driving, apparently. So, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. It was fun.
That's why I always drive.
I wasn't about to waste my gas.
That's my secret to life, Joe, too, is wherever we're going,
I
like to drive. Because you never know when shit's going to happen. You want to get the fuck out.
I already drove an hour to get where I was going. I wasn't about to drive an hour somewhere else and then an hour back.
Joe lives across the street from us. We're going to the same place. Like, okay, we'll meet you there. Yep. That's the way it is. Mm-hmm. All right, y'all. We've been on for an hour and a half.
Perfect.
And you only went through like 2 beers. Barely.
Yep, that's fine. I'm going to have a cigar in the garage. Whoever wants to hang out is more than welcome to hang out. Candy's like, perfect timing. Get your motherfucking ass home.
still watching?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
She's probably on. Yeah.
But thanks for coming out, Jason, and joining us again. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you. I love it. I love coming in here, man. This is such an awesome setup, and just being around good folks, man. Good conversation.
There's a house around the corner for sale if you just want to move into the neighborhood.
Yes.
Right around the corner here.
Let me talk to the boss about that.
Yep. This is a good time to buy, though.
I'll help you cut your grass.
He will.
It is true.
Now that's now I'm thinking about it.
As long as it has a pool, though. We have to have one of the three.
Yeah, one of us has a pool.
Yeah.
All right. This is our
Outro?
Our outro band, Must Not Kill.
Yes.
Incision, Decision. Check their latest release out.
Junk food.
Yeah, Junk Food Patriotism, by the way.
I knew that without looking, guys.
I didn't look either. It's not anywhere on here. But you did say it. And
I did.
Thank you for introducing me to those guys. I had Brad on the channel a
Yeah, I
while
saw
back
that.
and going to have him back again soon, too. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys. Been drinking with Drew. Check us out on all the socials. And we'll catch you next week, Tuesday at 6:30.
Everything except Truth Social.
Not on True Social. Not on Threads either.
Oh, God. I forgot there was another one. Ew.
Yeah.
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 It's the new one that came out from Facebook.
It's Facebook's attempt to
All right, never mind. We'll just do another hour.
No, we're done. I'm done. I'm taking the headphones off. We're done.
All right,
Music is over already.
Peace out with your cocks out. All right, everybody. This has been another episode of the Drinking with Drew show. Stay tuned for more uploads, more shows. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Humble Social, all the socials. Our live shows are Tuesday at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Feel free to check us out live. You can call into the show and be a part of it. See you soon.